Mm.
I didn't deal with God for a year and a half after Brian died.
Wow.
I didn't. I was mad. I was mad at Brian, but I was upset with God. So I honestly, me and God had an issue. I know he's always there, but I was wrestling with him. I got closer. You don't think so, but you
Yeah.
actually get closer because you're asking questions. This is father to daughter, not servant to master. My prayer for you is that you yearn for God more than your own husband. And I want you to know that God is the ultimate source and we are resources for each other. And that holds weight for me now because he's dead. He's gone.
I look at you're so young and I'm like, wow, God, how do you give so much to one person?
Mm.
And you keep them here and you put them back together. You mold them into who you want them to be, to come
Mhm.
back and be a witness to me and
Mhm.
to anyone who's listening to give us hope. Hello and welcome to the Woman Witness podcast of Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Here on this platform, we bring to you voices of women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their family, in the community around them. Women of resilience, women of faith, women who have battled through something and they are bold enough, strong enough to turn around, grab the hand of another sister and be a witness. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you my guest today. She is an author, a speaker, a podcast host, and the founder of a powerful advocate for grief and resilience. Born in a Thai refugee camp to parents who survived the Cambodian genocide, Sophie was raised between cultures, carrying the weight of generational trauma. In 2021, she was faced with another life altering loss,
Mhm.
the sudden passing of her husband, Brian. But through heartbreak, Sophie found purpose. He went on to found the Brian Thomas Legacy Foundation and the Father's Rights Initiative,
Mhm.
both built on faith, healing, and the commitment to impact driven work.
Mhm.
Today, Sophie joins us to talk about grief and emotional wellness, offering both practical and spiritual
Mhm.
tools healing after loss. She opens up about turning pain into purpose, rebuilding identity, and leading from a place of wholeness in Christ. This conversation is both resilient, it's faith, and it gives the purpose of what it means to rise again and again. I
Mhm.
am so excited to introduce to you my guest today, Miss Sophy Thomas. Hi, Sophie. Welcome to the well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. What a beautiful intro. I feel
Now you see why I'm so like just lost for words. And as I was telling you before we
Mhm.
press forward, I look at you're so young and I'm like, how God, how do you give so much to one person?
Mm.
And you keep them here and and you put them back together, you mold them into who you want them to be, to come
Mhm.
back and be a witness to me and
Mhm.
to anyone who's listening to give us hope. I mean, I have chills just thinking about it. So let me just stop talking real quick. I know I told our audience a little bit about you, but I
Yeah.
want to give the floor back to you. Let's start with your story, Sophie.
Yeah.
Tell us what people need to understand, how everything that you've been through, how it shaped you. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Man, my story started way back in the refugee camp, right?
Mm,
Um, I tell people now, like, I was born into pain that I didn't choose, and that's
mm,
generational trauma, right? My parents were um, refugees, escaping the war-torn country of Cambodia back in the '70s. We don't read about it in the history book. We read about Hitler, but
yeah.
a huge genocide that went on in the '70s in Cambodia that killed more than 1.2 million people. My parents escaped the war, found refuge in Thailand. They met, and that's how I was conceived. In a refugee camp. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, my story of resilience, my story of grit, my story of grief, I know that, you had mentioned, yeah, loss. That was the most life altering event for me, was the loss of my beloved late husband, back in 2021. But as I think back and I reflect, I said, Sophie, you have been dealing with grief all your life and never really acknowledge it, because society ties grief to the loss of someone, right?
Mm.
Loss of a loved one.
Come on.
You grieve so many things in your life. And for me, I grew up in a home that did not know Christ. I'm the only Christian. My son recently got saved. He's 29 years old, guys. He'll be 29.
Thank
Okay.
you,
I,
Jesus. For a while.
I,
I have a 29-year-old, by the way,
I
but
prayed that God would save my son through my example of living. And he recently got saved. But growing up in a home, a Buddhist home, not knowing the gospel, not knowing Christ, not knowing any of that, my identity was formed through the eyes of my parents. And that wasn't God's identity and purpose for me at all. So I grieve really who I'm supposed to be. So
Mhm.
looking at my life, I know you say I look and praise God, but I'm 46 years old.
Years more than me.
I am 46 years old, so I lived a pretty long life. When you think about it, you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey," right? So
Mm.
my story of grit and resilience goes back to being born in that refugee camp. And when someone asks me, like, "Where do you get this grit and tenacity from, this anchor?" Because life wants to break you down, right?
Come on.
And I always say, bend but don't break. Life, it will sway you,
Yeah.
but don't break.
Yeah.
And the reason why you're not breaking is your roots are anchored, right? It's anchored in that foundation. But I get the grit and perseverance, I think, from the spirit of my grandmother. I mean, my grandmother, my mom's mom, decided in an instant to leave her husband, who refused to leave his home in Cambodia because the Khmer Rouge was coming in, killing people and
Mm.
taking land and taking property. And my grandfather had too much pride to leave his land. So my grandmother, in instant, took her 11 children and said, "You know what? I have to go. I have to leave." And in an instant, she made that decision to leave. 2 weeks journey through the forests of Cambodia into the refugee camp in Thailand. And if it wasn't for that courage in that instant, she solidified my future,
Oh my gosh.
because if she hadn't done that, they would have been killed. My mom would have been killed. I wouldn't have been born. So I say now, as I'm
Mm.
looking and as I interview my parents, man, I think that's where I get my grip from. That
Yeah.
brilliant, that tenacity is the
Yeah.
spirit of my grandmother.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
what a story, to be told, and just hearing how scary it is to, pick up and leave. Man, we can go deep on that. But I want to ask you, being born in the refugee camp
Mhm.
and raised between cultures, right? As you discuss, and now you lead initiatives centered around healing and around breakthrough. You talked about grieving and we're
Mhm.
grieving a multitude of different things, right? Like you said, it's not just a person. So talk to me about how has your cultural background influenced your purpose and influence the way that the drive and the push behind your
Mhm.
foundation.
Man, that's a good question, right? I felt like I've dealt with this cultural identity for a long time, right? I grew up in a home, an Asian home, very strict, um, you know, not verbal, not emotional,
Mm,
not affection,
mm,
very dysfunctional, neglect, abandonment, all the things that I felt growing up because I didn't get
mm.
these things from my parents. And I think we all know as you get older, because I resented them for a long time. Because
Yeah,
what happens, right? You have these childhood wounds and you go through relationships and you're
yeah.
finding love and affection through the
Yes,
wrong
ma'am.
people. Yeah, so we all
Yes,
do that as women, right?
yes.
So we can
Yeah.
go, that's a whole different topic.
Come on.
Uh, and it was not until recently where I'm like, okay, God, I know I grew up in dysfunction. I
Yeah.
love my culture. This it's where I'm from.
Yeah.
You know, what are the good things that I can extract from it?
Mm.
That helped me release resentment. That helped me forgive my parents, right? Um,
Mm.
it helped me forgive my parents. I mean, they grew up, they loved me to their capacity, right? That's all they knew because that's how they were loved and that's how they were shown love, right? It was performance driven. So what are those things, God, that I can extract from my culture that actually aligns with kingdom culture?
Mm.
That was honor. That was sacrifice, that was respect, you know, that was, rooted in family, the foundation of family. I saw that growing up, but I didn't see that, I see that, but I didn't have that right vision or that right, sight to acknowledge these are the good things, right, that I can extract from my culture, even though I grew up in such dysfunction and infected with drugs and alcohol and domestic violence. I saw all of that growing up as a
Mm.
young child, things that I should never seen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Subject. But when I came into Christ and I got saved in my early 20s,
Mm.
um, and I got saved without even knowing the gospel. It was in a dream. It was by faith. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know the gospel. I was dating a pastor's son. I was going to church to find him one day because I couldn't find him. So I was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to my parents' church and I'm going to
Yeah.
find him there. And it was that moment. A prophecy was spoken over my life from a prophet from South Africa, actually. And that's what
Wow.
happening, yeah. So, I was like, "Okay, what are those things that I can actually extract from my culture and it aligned with kingdom culture?" And those are the components, the honor, the
Yeah.
resilience, the family component, the grit,
Mm.
the service. I saw service, although I didn't see service in a healthy way because women serve their men, they serve their husband, they
Yeah.
are very submissive, right?
Yeah.
But it was toxic. It was out of alignment and it wasn't the right type of submission. So when I came into the knowledge of God, what does that look like to submit to a man, right? I'm not submitting to someone who's not submitted to God. So it
Sophie, you better stop.
so when I met
Mm.
my late husband, I was 35 by the time I met Brian, and I've gone through all these relationships, right? I
Yeah.
was in the 20s going through it, being the spiritual
Mm.
leader, initiating prayer, all these things that are out of order. Because when it's out of order, it's chaotic. We're doing all these things that men are supposed to be doing, right? Taking us out of our femininity into the masculine. I was doing all of that stuff. But when I met B, I was like, this is kingship. This is the right order. This is the right
Mm.
type of submission. This is a man under God that I can actually submit to. That's why it was such a love to lose, because I have never ever experienced somebody and someone like that. It was such a love to lose because, man, I've gone through all this, and by 35, I meet this dude who hit me up on Facebook, and he was
Mm.
actually ministering, doing a tour around the country, and I didn't give him the time of the day, but eventually I did, and I was able to talk to him, and I felt such an anointing that
Mm.
I've never felt before, and I mean, we got married in 4 months, okay, after our meeting.
Look, look, when it's meant to be, it's meant to
When it's meant to
be.
be, but it was such a
The alignment.
moment in alignment in my life, and when I saw that display in real time, like, this is, of man of God, this is a kingdom man, this is someone I can submit to. I mean, I could write a whole book about the love that I experienced with that man. There's a lesson in that short time that I was married to him, but that goes to say, I mean,
How long were you guys married, Sophie, before?
so we got married in 2025, he died in 2021, but in between those times, he was out of the house more than he was in the house because prior to meeting me, he
Yeah.
lived a life of street.
Mm.
So
Mm.
4 years after the court decided to go to bring up his case, he was trafficking back in the day, and I met him after his transformation. So
Mm.
it came up during our marriage, and he had to sit down for 3 years. He was in work release, and that was a merciful, that was God's mercy because he had 4 felonies and he was supposed to sit down for like 20 plus years.
Wow.
That was God's mercy over his life. So I was able to see him while he was in work with
Yeah.
me. So actually, I was married and he was out of the house more than we were actually together. So
Mm,
grief
mm,
there, right? There was grief there.
come on.
There was grief there. I was grieving a living person. I was grieving a living person. So when I look back to my story, man, Sophie, you've grieved. You've been grieving. You grew up, you were born into pain you didn't choose.
Shh.
And although that wasn't your fault, but it is our responsibility to heal. Let's say that. It's our responsibility.
To
Things
heal, to forgive,
give,
to
right? It rains on the just and unjust, right?
go. Good
Like
gracious.
it is it is our responsibility. Like I look at my life and I'm like, God, like most of the things that I've gone through, yes, your decisions, right? Circumstances, your decisions, right? Are their circumstances, your decisions. But most of the big things that I've gone through, the trauma, all of this stuff were inflicted on me by the decisions of my loved ones. I suffered that consequences of their decision. Everybody that was supposed to protect me, every man that was supposed to protect me and love me, expose me, and mistreat me, abuse me.
Mm,
And then I meet something phenomenal, someone so not perfect, but just walked in kingdom. And then I'm like, God, this
right.
can't be good for me. Like, why would you think this is good for me? So
Mm,
I didn't deal with God for a year and a half after Brian died.
wow.
I didn't. I was mad. I was mad at Brian because he
Why?
left. He went away to jail. I left my corporate job making 6 figures, followed
Mm,
him to Huntsville, Alabama. I'm from Connecticut. Met this
wow.
4 months later, 4 months married him, and I was upset with him. I was upset that he died on me,
Yeah.
and I was
I
upset,
uprooted myself.
uprooted myself, and I was upset with God. So I honestly, me and God had an issue. I had an issue with him. He didn't have an issue.
Mm,
I would say that for a year and a half. I was mad at him.
wow. So you said so much right there. I want to ask you. I gotta go back, Sophie, because I feel like what you said is so powerful. You
Mhm.
said you had to grieve somebody who was still alive.
Mhm.
I can take that and run with it, and by far this is not about me, but you think about some of us who've been through that trauma, right? And you have this living person who's walking around not even thinking about you, and
Mhm.
you're angry, right? But
Mhm.
imagine having to grieve the process while they are alive and let go,
Mhm.
forgive,
Mhm. Mhm.
move forward,
Mhm.
and live, grieve that loss,
Yep.
grieve what the idea of who you could be or the idea of what you always thought your life should be like.
Mhm.
Can
Mhm.
you just dig a little bit deeper for some of those people who may be in that place where they're grieving someone who's still alive?
I mean, prime example, divorce, right?
Oh, that's good.
Those that go through divorce. I mean,
Yeah.
divorce is a heartbreaking, it's a
Yeah.
sever of covenant.
Yes. Yes.
Covenant is a sever of covenant. You have a blood covenant with someone and that's broken, right?
Mm, mhm,
And you're
mm.
grieving who you are with them, you're grieving your whole identity, you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be life, death situation.
Right.
I mean, so it's
Right.
like I think, the great late I love Miles Monroe. He's one of the mentors, and I know he's passed, but I still read his books and I still listen to. He said, actually, divorce is worse than death. 'Cause you're grieving a living person. You get
Oh,
to see them every day. You're reliving your thoughts, your feelings, and all this stuff, and if you share children and you
yeah.
gotta deal with that,
That's good.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, grieving a living person is death is final, right? At
Mhm.
some point, you do accept it, and they're no longer here. You accept that they're no longer on earth, but
You're
you
no
gotta see, hear social media now,
Come on.
if
Come
you
on.
if you got mutual friends, you know what I mean?
Look.
Every breakup is a loss, so
Mm,
anything grief is a loss, it's a
it
loss
is.
of identity, a loss if you lost your job, you're grieving that, right?
Yeah.
You're grieving that, right? You
Yeah.
lost for, a friendship, you're grieving.
Yes.
This
Yes.
grief is tied to any type of loss.
Come on. Oh my goodness, Sophie, you can go so deep in that. I want to talk to you. Gosh, you cover so many angles of grief, and I love this
Mm,
about our conversation. After losing your husband,
mhm,
what were some of the first emotional or spiritual
mm.
tools that you reached for or discovered along the way?
Well, I can tell you that, I was I was pissed. I
Mm,
mean, the first human feelings, right? Um, I think we over spiritualize a lot when someone in early grief. So those are one of the things me and two other widows have a podcast called Heartprints of Loss. And we all lost our husband in different forms. One was murdered, the other one was through cancer. Mine was a sudden death through car accident. And we talked about the over spiritualizing because when you over spiritualize, you remove the humanity out of
mm,
people's pain. You don't allow them to feel the human experience of loss. Even Jesus wept, even though he knew he was gonna raise Lazarus. He demonstrated a human experience.
mm, mm, mm,
Allow us to have that experience, because you can only heal if you feel. That's really true. I had to sit in that. I had to sit in that pain. I had to have conversation with that pain.
mm,
I had to confront the pain. I had to confront the grief, as uncomfortable as it was. Like I said a few moments ago, me and God didn't really have talks. I know he was always there. I'm a woman of faith. I know he's always there. But I also know that and in hindsight, I realized this as I was wrestling with him, I got closer. And in that moment, you don't think so, you know? But you
yeah.
actually feel closer because you're asking questions. This is father to daughter, not servant to master, where you don't get to sit at the master's table.
Mm,
This is
mm,
all you, he's there. So I would say, man, listen, the
mm,
ministry presence is so profound and underrated. You can't possibly say anything to someone who's lost someone early. I would say early grief. Early grief is the first 2 years, to be honest. You have that grief fog for 2 years. And the
mm,
second year is worse than the first year. The
mm.
statistics. Ministry of presence. When you show up, you have nothing to say, you sit there. We know that you're here, you know?
Yeah.
Little things like prepare food, deliver food. Don't let those DoorDash stop coming. If you have a support, my support system was strong. I didn't have a biological support system, but I had my in-laws who are still very close and connected to me today. I have
Mhm.
my friends whom I met through my late husband. As I say, he's the gift that keeps giving because the people that are in my life are the people that I met through B.
Mm,
Um, so they were strong. They put me in therapy in the first 2 weeks. And let me tell you, that what came to mind? I said, "God, if I don't go to therapy, the enemy knows that this is familiar territory because I've attempted suicide in my past. I've
mm,
depression, I've dealt with anxiety. I was a cutter.
mm,
You know what I mean? So
mm.
it's such a familiar territory that if I don't get help, God, I will succumb to
Mm,
this.
my God.
So, and even the first few times I brought my best friend with me. I don't care what she's hearing.
Yeah.
She sat in with me with the therapist.
Yeah.
And my therapist, I remember her asking me a very crucial question. Do you want uncomplicated grief or complicated grief? Both are hard, but you choose. Because she was like, I deal with clients that have complicated grief that are still sleeping on their couch 5 years after their husband passed and haven't touched anything. And they want their lives like they're kind of like waiting to die.
Mm,
And
my
God, Brian poured into me so much. This is the beautiful example of a man that knows his role and the covering that he gave his wife and spoke life into us. He knew all the stuff that I've been through, right? There's a video of him saying, Woman, I can't wait until you realize that I will be here to serve you, support you, help you through it because you can set so many people free because I know your story.
my God.
And it came to a moment. that I said, "You know what? I'm not gonna let," because he lived a life full. He was very exuberant, very grandiose, you know, he loved people. He loved his purpose was to help people find their purpose. That was his purpose. It was potent. He wanted to make purpose contagious. And I said to myself one day, "Man, like, I'm not going to allow Brian's death to make his life meaningless, and I'm not gonna allow his death to make my life meaningless either." Like, his death can't make my life meaningless, and I go back to, man, we're born here as an individual. We're gonna die alone, you know what I mean? Marriage is beautiful, 2 people that comes together, but we're still individual, and my purpose
Absolutely.
is different from him, and my therapist told me, "Be careful to not carry Brian's purpose that's complete. Don't get
Mm.
lost." Even when I was creating the Brian Thomas Legacy Foundation, because we had shared values, communities, and families, and all that good stuff, I was like, I call it the Brian Thomas, but then there's a little logo there that there's a lotus flower that represents my culture and my country, but it's very subtle underneath his picture. And the lotus is known to grow through mud and it's
Mm.
beautiful, right? So that's
Yeah.
a representation of me, but she said, "Don't forget your purpose. It's different than bees. Carry
Mm.
that through because his is done. You carry that legacy because you guys share such a shared value, right?" So I'm very careful of that with what I'm doing. I'm an entrepreneur now. I just stepped into this space. It's scary.
Oh.
Um, but
Yeah.
I stepped into this entrepreneur space, and when I feel less than when I feel that there is lack, and when I feel like I have limited belief systems, when I feel I'm always reminded of what my late husband said to me, Sophie, when he called me from jail and I was yearning, crying for him, I was grieving him, and I said, "I miss you so much, honey. This breaks my heart. My heart feel I'm going in panic attack." He said,
Mm.
"Right, my prayer for you, my wife," he always says my wife, he was such a doting husband. My wife, my prayer for you is that you yearn for God more than your own husband.
Mm. My God.
And I want you to know that God is the ultimate source and we are resources for each other. The only way I can do anything for you is because I go to the source. And that holds weight for me now because he's dead. He's gone. So when I feel these things and I feel lonely and I feel by myself and all alone because grief is such a universal thing, but when it happens to you, it feels like you're the only one going through it.
Yeah.
And I want to say this about grief. There is a guy named David Kessler who is a world-renowned grief therapist. He's been in it for 30, 40 years, advisors to
Mm.
presidents, world leaders, and all those things. He said in his years of grief, he has not found one grief that is alike. So be careful when you say, "I know how you feel." I know
Yeah.
exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Here's a man that studied it and been it and has been a counselor, and he said, "There's not one grief that is the same."
I agree.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm reminded of those words of my husband when I like yesterday, I truly transparent, had a little breakdown.
Mm.
"This is not working out, God. Like, do I need to go and get a job? I've been out of corporate for 10 years.
Mm.
I've been working from home. I've been, prior to going full-time entrepreneur, I was helping coaching consultants, living their dreams, pushing their vision, pushing their goals, right? And when my husband was alive, he was a speaker and had all these curriculums in school. I was pushing him, I was helping him, I was the back person, I was the support center. I am that person. If you listening right now, I
Yeah.
am you. If you are that person that's always in the bag, supporting someone and is comfortable there, I mean, I was that person, right? I did not want to be in,
Fair.
but the way my life is set up, I can't run no more. I've been running for 40 something years.
Yes.
Like, Lord, I'm just gonna surrender because
Yes.
when you don't do it and you're disobedient, he's just gonna remove everything.
Mm.
He's going to put you on the
My goodness, Sophie.
And that's what happened to me. I'm like, "Dag," like, okay, things got removed. My job got removed. I was helping, like I help speakers and consultant with high
Mhm.
ticket programs. I'm their program manager. I'm helping everything run smooth and bringing revenue into their company. I'm helping all these small business owners, and I'm not doing anything for myself. And guess what? It got removed. I said, "Dang."
But you were learning.
I
It
was
was
learning.
preparing you.
I was preparing, and that's exactly it. I was learning, I was preparing. I see the things
Yeah.
that work, to see the things that didn't. I was looking at leaders. I was like, this one's that, this one, like I'm learning, right?
Yeah.
Right now I have my little team while I still, I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur for some businesses to help them with theirs, but I
Yeah.
now working on my own stuff. And my first thing is this book that I have coming out on
Oh,
October.
I want to hear for sure about your book. I'm at loss of words just listening to you talk about um probably what you're going to tell me the book is about grief and loss. I want to ask you a little bit about the Brian Thomas Legacy Foundation
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
trial and the powerful tribute. What was you hold on, let me go back. Let me make sure I read this correctly. You said the foundation and it's Father's Rights Initiative.
So it's in a very developing phase. So, I was a single mother. I was a teenage mom.
Yeah.
Right? I know what it feels like. Let me preface that. I know what it feels like as a woman, as a young woman in general, not getting the support, right? Fighting for the father to be involved and they're not, right? Been
Mhm.
through that. I have a whole bunch of girlfriends, right? Unfortunately, a lot of us go through that, right?
Yeah.
But then I know some good brothers and my husband who fought and didn't get that. And
Yeah.
I saw the pain and I saw the suffering. I see what the court system does to them. The process is so strenuous to get rights, because naturally in every state, it leans towards mom, right? Regardless if they're not financially able, if they're not mentally, all that stuff. It takes someone to be on crack cocaine to get
Yeah.
visitation or any kind of right. So I saw that process. So my thing is this: I do believe in the order of man and woman, and I do believe in the infrastructure of a man, right? The
Yeah.
protection provider,
Yeah.
and I'm not reducing men to just providers financially.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the infrastructure of man, right? And I do believe that in order to get God's will, for God's will to be done, men and women have to co-labor and work together, right?
Yeah.
Um, the Father's Rights Initiative was birthed, witnessing B's process in fighting. And I saw the pain. I heard the cries and the fight, the legal fight that be for someone who wants to be in the child's life. And I do believe that
Mm.
um, if men fall, society falls because they are our infrastructure that
Yeah.
God made them leader, right? So I am a big encourager of our men and their mental health and their self-care. I think I've naturally
Mhm.
done that. But the Father's Rights Initiative is basically a curriculum that I'm developing, and they have to go through this personal and spiritual development curriculum. It's like a 6 months curriculum. And in order for them to be eligible for financial assistance to get rights, legal rights,
Wow, Sophie.
to get visitation, right? To be in their child's life. But you have
Wow.
to show up. You have to, there's certain criterias, right? With
Wow.
that, so I have like a friend who is an attorney who's on board who will give you general information. I have a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist who talks about parent
Wow.
alienation and all that stuff. So it's like I'm trying to deal with it as a whole, but
Yeah.
helping our men be in the home, be in their child's life, uh,
That's
and
huge.
have rights and basic educational parental rights, their legal rights.
Wow.
That's the Father's Rights Initiative, yeah.
Sophie, that's amazing.
And
That that is amazing.
yeah, and I feel like as a woman taking lead on it, I feel like my positioning is as of an ally, like I'm reaching out. The
Yeah.
It's like, we all go through stuff. We have so much trauma. We all these things
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
dictate our behavior that's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
But we gotta think about the child. You know how
Yeah.
much I wanted for my son's father to be in my Andrew's life and help me?
Yeah.
I wanted that so
Wow.
much.
Man, I love that, Sophie. I can definitely see how that could be useful. I mean, you may have a lot of fathers out there who just don't know the rights and they
Ex
don't think that it's possible.
They
or they feel like, where do I even start? And also at the same time, being able to have a foundation or a platform that offers family counseling. Maybe I still may be holding on to some resentment, or maybe I have past trauma. And you're right. It all boils down to the child. Let me ask you, how do we start turning pain into purpose, especially when we feel stuck?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
I think, man, in my book, In Between the Spaces, I talk about exactly that, right? You
Yeah,
I'm here speaking to not having it all together. I'm
come on.
still in between the spaces, right?
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
those unseen broken spaces, those unspoken places, right? The place
yeah,
before, how after heartbreak, before healing, survival, that in between the survival and thriving, right? Pain,
yeah,
purpose, right? It's like you don't really I just say this. I'll say this, right? I mean,
yeah,
the word tells us to count it all joy,
mm,
right? The word tells us what is
yeah.
in Romans. I forgot that scripture. Was it in Romans? I know I wrote it down somewhere.
Go back
Uh,
to look it up.
Yeah, it was Romans 5,
Grieving.
3, 4 reminds us we also glory in our suffering because we know that suffering produces perseverance.
There it is.
Perseverance, character, and character, hope. So, really, when you're going through suffering, you're producing perseverance, which you're producing character, and character produces hope.
Mm,
So, there's hope that's being built in the in between,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There is, there,
absolutely.
there is, and look at as man instead of God. Why is this happening to me? What's it doing for me? You know,
Mm,
what are you trying to? What lesson am I extracting from this? So now I'm learning to be like God, my roots are just being it's just drinking from deeper wells.
come on.
I'm being developed right
Yeah,
in this season.
yeah,
And right now I'm in between spaces, right? I
yeah.
have this big global vision, this big global ministry that was spoken over my life. But I'm in these between spaces that sometimes feel so far.
Mm, 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 mm,
I'm
mm.
developing. You're being developed in these between spaces and
Yeah,
careful, right? Careful. Yesterday, I was listening to a sermon about your words and how your words are vehicles. And
that's
I,
true.
and I realized the last few days because of how I was feeling, I was using words that was not necessarily good, right?
Yeah.
How I'm feeling and all of that stuff. And someone said to me yesterday, Sophie, be careful. Your words are vehicles. Your words can move mountains. So, right, your words can move mountains. So speak differently about yourself.
My
And I
God.
every mentor has a mentor, right? Every coach has a coach, and I'm so grateful for these support systems that I can go to and talk to very, very transparent, very vulnerable. And that was reminded like those in between spaces are so crucial to your development. It is for your good. It is counted joy, because these perseverance like turns into character and character into hope. That
Mm,
hope is the root. That faith is the root to keep you grounded, to
yeah,
keep on foundation. That
yeah.
that is it's building, it's muscle that's building for you, right?
Mm,
So I would say, man, and it's so beautiful how God does it because look at what he's doing with you. I don't know your story per se, but I'm sure you have a story, right? Look at what
yeah,
he's doing for me, right? You're giving women the platform. 'Cause you
yeah.
know what it feels like to not be able to maybe be silent or don't have a voice or you didn't feel worthy enough and all of that stuff, right? And
Mm,
and you're
mm,
reaching back and you're giving women platform really for freedom. And I think vulnerability breeds freedom. Transparency breeds freedom. So talk about it. Share.
that's it right there, Sophie. Oh gosh, if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that if you are in that situation where you're feeling stuck, man, um, just know that you are closer than you're closer to your goal than what you think.
Yeah, it's a
You are
development.
way closer.
Yeah, it's closer, you're developing, and
Yeah.
I also say this, like, I said this to someone the other day, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "You know what? Let's because you choose to still be here, and despite of all that you've gone through, because you choose to be here, it is an act of rebellion against darkness.
Come on.
It is
The
an
enemy don't want you here. He wants you to sit
act
silent.
right, but we know the enemy's plan, right? There's a whole manuscript that God gave us. We know
Yeah.
we're not like, let's not act surprised what his roles and responsibility are
Right.
in our lives, right? So
Right.
I charge, like, let's live in an act of rebellious against darkness. And the reason and you're here means you're choosing hope. You're
Mm,
resilient. And I shared that with someone the other day, and they're like, "Man, what a play on words. Let's
mm.
be in an act of rebellion
That's
against
true.
darkness, right? Let's fight
That's true.
let's fight for that purpose." You
Every
know,
time you get up and your feet hit that ground, the devil is mad.
is
He's so angry.
he's so
Every time you open your mouth, he's angry. Sophie, I want you to tell us about this your book. Your book drops in October.
Yep. Mhm.
Talk to us about what we can expect to read, to find, be set free from. Talk to us a little bit about your book writing journey and what the book is about.
Man, the journey's been almost 3 years. It's like
Okay.
a little bit of a year after B died, um, and it has been a process. It's been healing. It invoked some emotions that were hidden, right? I think writing a book is pretty therapeutic.
Yeah, it is.
Um, it also got me closer to my parents because
Interesting.
because I sat them down and I interviewed them. I don't think we ever talked in that way.
Wow.
For me to ask the question, like, "Where did that come from?" I feel so sometimes, like, going through my life, I feel so confused because I'm stuck in 2, like, cultures, and I feel like I have an identity crisis sometimes. So where did
Mm.
it come from? So interviewing them actually got me closer to them, right?
Wow.
The book is called In Between the Spaces, The Roots They Couldn't Kill is the subtitle,
Wow.
and
Mm.
as I previously stated, it's I know
Mm.
what it feels like to be in between those spaces, right? Uh,
Yeah.
from in between the pain and the healing, in between the heartbreak and the healing, in those between spaces. As you read, it's a visual experience because, I was told that it's so poetic in a way, and you can actually eat my words. I mean, I knew I was a writer, but writing it is I knew it. I knew I was a writer. I mean, I like to write anyway,
Yeah.
but you're actually going to have a visual and a tangible experience reading this book. And my prayer is that you break free from limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
My prayer is that you view also grief differently.
Wow.
Um, and my prayer is for you to know that no matter what, no matter where you come from,
Mm.
no matter their circumstances, no matter what your parents did or did not do, you are firmly rooted. Your identity is solely rooted in Christ. And there is a plan
Yeah.
and purpose for you that what you've done and your mistakes didn't cancel any of that out.
Mm.
It didn't cancel any of that out.
Mm, that's good.
Right? And then you're not broken. You are becoming, and we're always going to continue to become. That we're always going from glory to glory. I don't
Mm.
think there's any type of end. It's constant evolving and developing. And I hope that my life story, because I talk about suicide, I talk about cultural identity, I talk about,
Mm.
feeling unworthy and domestic violence. I'm talking about relationships, not knowing who I am. I'm talking about death. I'm talking about so much that it's not just towards women. Anybody can relate to this, right? So I'm not just saying it's women, it's
Mhm.
everybody. But if I'm here and I'm talking about it and I'm choosing in an act of rebellion against darkness, that you can too. If I'm sitting here talking to you on a podcast, sharing my story, there is hope for you too.
Amen.
You can turn all of that into impact
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
an income.
Come on. Come on. What the enemy meant for harm, God will turn into good. I want to ask you, this is off my notes, but I want to ask you, Sophie, what would you say to someone who has been given a prophecy, someone who
Mm.
has been given a vision. God has put it into their belly. They go to sleep thinking about it. They wake up thinking about it. It's a roaring and deep down. Like, it was it Isaiah, prophet Isaiah. It's like fire shut up in my bones. Talk
Mhm.
to some of those people about how to keep pushing on, keep pushing past those darkness, keep pushing past those in between places when you just don't see it. You're holding on to a promise.
God is not man that he would lie.
Mm.
So those promises are true and amen. And it doesn't feel good just because
Come on.
you've been called and you're purposed and you've been prophesied doesn't eliminate all the things that you're going to go through in between. It doesn't protect you, from pain, from betrayal, from heartbreak. But all that is good for you. I Now I know, like all that is good for you and it's purposeful. It is purposeful for you. And then, man, you have, I mean, when somebody was like, well, I mean, did you go to school? Did you, look, I was 17 years old. I went to get a 2-year degree so I could work and
Mm.
support my son. But I have a PhD in resilience,
Come on.
but I have
Come on.
a PhD in grit. I have a PhD in
Yeah.
tenacity. I have a PhD in overcoming. I know what it feels like. I know what I have to do in order to get over this hump. You know, I say keep your eyes on the prize. Remember the promises that God gave you, the prophecy. Somebody reminded me of that yesterday. She said, Sophie, I had a moment. She said, remember, I called you a couple years ago and I was in the parking lot and the vision came, and she said that you are going to be an author of many books. And through your books and your courses and your training, it's going to set so many free, but it's also going to give you financial freedom. So she was like,
Come on.
Remember that. And here I am writing my first book. Remember what God has brought you out from. Do not, I-
Yes.
a lot of us have spiritual amnesia. We didn't know how we were going to get out of it, but He did. And then now we're facing something else and now we're worried and we have anxiety and we forget what He did the last time. Remember what God has brought you out from the last time, because that is the very hope and that is the very thing that's going to keep you going and pushing. Don't let the devil, don't let the enemy steal. That's what he wants. He wants to cancel your plans. He wants you not to believe. He wants you to feel unworthy, and then you don't fully realize your full potential. They say that the cemetery is the richest place on earth. Why? Because dreams are dead there. Ideas are dead there. There are multimillionaires that are dead that never really realize their purpose because they didn't get to whatever life brought their way, they succumbed to it.
That's good, Sophie. That is so good. Man, I hear what you're saying so loud and clear. And the scripture that comes to mind is, "Don't be anxious for anything."
Don't be anxious. I have to look. Look, I have to do that every day because
Look,
naturally, like, my late husband used to be like, "Woman, do you not have any faith?"
I
You know? I'm like,
come on,
yes,
come on.
I have to remind of that,
Be anxious for nothing,
for nothing.
nothing.
And now that I'm in this space, I'm like,
Mm,
sometimes it's like, "Dad, God, like, I don't have her covering. I miss my husband. I miss his insight.
mm.
I feel exposed at times." But then I'm always reminded of what he told me, right? God is the ultimate source.
Come
So
on.
I'm super excited about this book. I mean, there's
Mm.
so much in there, but I also have, when you pre-order it now, I created a 3 course. It's a free mini course. It's called Rooted in Resilience. So when you do pre-order that, you get those free courses right away, and you get to join my free community that I'm going to start going live on next week.
Let's go.
Talk about all things resilience, and discuss these topics that I've covered in the book. So
Tell us where we can follow you and find you.
go to my website, www.sophiepthomas.com. That is my website. You can go on my Instagram. It's Mrs. Thomas. Sophie spelled with a Hy, not an IE. And people just it was like, I can't find you." I'm like, "Oh,
How you spell
yeah,
it?
Y Thomas." So it's Mrs. Sophie Thomas, www.sophiepthomas, .com, and Facebook is just Sophie Thomas. So those are the 3 ways, that you can find me.
Perfect. All right. Sophie, I absolutely loved having you on. I loved our conversation. I feel like we can talk forever and
Yeah.
we have to have you back for a part 2 because there's so much more that we can dig into your story. I think that you'll be able to help so many people who feel stuck between cultures.
Yeah.
And just stuck. So I'd like to get more into that a little bit later. But before I let you go, Sophie, I love to always give the floor back to my guests. I want you to give us something to hold on to until we're either in the presence of God, or maybe we're with our meetup group or our Bible study or just a good friend. Give us something to hold on to.
It just seems so cliche, but
Mm.
it's not really, right? Um, that you are worthy of all things good, um, regardless of what they said about you, how
Yeah.
they labeled you, the lies they've told, how they betrayed you, how they broke you. None of that value is diminished. You
Mm.
are beautiful and wonderfully made in God's eye. You are made in his image. He loved us so much that he say, "Ooh," he stepped back. He was like, "I'm gonna make you in my image." You know how much God loves himself and he thought he was beautiful? He made us
Come on.
so none
Mm.
of that diminish you. So hold on to that worth, hold on to that value, hold on to those dreams, hold on to that purpose.
Mm.
And I do want to challenge one last thing. I talked to my widow group about this is what is the very thing that died, that went with, if you've dealt with loss, that went with your spouse, that went with someone that was close to you that passed, the thing that died along with them that God is trying to resurrect. Think of
Mm.
that, that he's trying to felt like, it died along with them. And it wasn't, it got dormant for a while. But I want you to think of the thing that God is trying to resurrect in your life.
That's good.
Um,
That's
yeah, yeah, that's what I want to leave with.
That's real good.
Mm.
Mm. Okay, on that note, I won't even add nothing else to that. Yeah. Do that homework. Do that homework. As Sophie told us before, it doesn't have to be a person and they don't have to be dead. They
They
can be
don't have to bear. You can very grieve. I mean, you can grieve your own identity. I grieved who I was with Brian. I'm like, who am I now? Because
Come on.
we idolize our people, we idolize our marriages, we idolize our person. And
Come on. That's a good homework.
yes,
Sophie, that's a good Imma do it. Come on.
yeah,
I'm gonna do it. Do it, guys. I want if you feel up to sharing and
yeah,
you actually do that, share it with us. Put it in
yeah,
the comments. Reach out to Sophie. Give us your feedback. Encourage another sister that this could be a breakthrough. As Sophie said, this can wake up what's lying dormant that God is trying to wake up out of us. That's
woo,
good.
wake up those dry bones.
Come on. Come on. Okay, Sophie, thank you so, so much. You are just a delight. You're a pleasure. You came and you poured it this well. I feel so full. It is running over, and we want
Wow,
everyone who is listening. We want you to take this episode, share it with a friend.
yes,
Don't tell them anything. Just say you got to listen to this. This is for you. It's time to wake up.
yes,
What is Sophie? Wake up them dry bones,
yes,
okay?
wake up
And then
the
send
bones.
it to another friend and
Yeah,
another friend. Follow.
meditation.
Yes, follow Sophie on all social media. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you do not miss another episode. All of Sophie's information is in the description below. When you pick up a copy of her book, snap a picture and just go ahead and just tag us on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media platform you're on. Um, Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you.
We adore you. Thank
Thank
you so much.
you. God bless you. God bless you. We'll talk
And
again.
of course. Ladies, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Leah Fortier, and perhaps you were chosen for such a time as this to write, to tell your story, your
Mhm.
truth. Until next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye.